Congratulations, you made it to Module 5. So in this last assignment, everything that we've picked up this semester, all the skills and knowledge are going to come in handy. You spent a lot of time looking at how other people integrate technology. Now you're going to get to design one yourself in the form of a web quest. Our final semester's discussions are all going to be related to the web quest. So first you'll share your thoughts on what you'd like to do. Then you'll share your link to your actual web quest, even if it's still work in progress. We're working on drafts here. You'll share that with the rest of us in Flipgrid. In phase 1, you're going to be asked to just talk about it. If you want to draft something up and share it like in a Google Doc or something, that'd be great. Or you can just try and talk it out. But you try and focus on your task and your process. And then we'll see those in Flipgrid and we can give you advice as you continue along your path. So I will be replying to everybody with real specific advice about your project, maybe pointing you to specific examples from our semester or previous semesters that you can look at for ideas about how to implement your project idea. Then in phase 2, you're going to post your link. At that point, hopefully you've chosen one of the website tools and are actually putting some stuff out there. So at this point, you'll be able to share your link, maybe any other thoughts about what you're doing. You can even ask us questions to see if we can help you on specific things that you're having trouble with. Your instructor, me, others in the class will provide you with lots of feedback, and that way you can do the same for us, and then we'll all be sharing our ideas and making our work that much better. So this is time for peer reviewing and drafting before you just hand in an 80-point assignment. So as you're providing advice to your friends, anything from color choice to the links they use, task and process, all that stuff is that clearly laid out. Look at the rubric for the assignment itself and help them see if they can match up any points that they might be missing. Provide them anything that you can to help them make their final project better, and they're going to do the same for you. So that's why we're doing peer review multiple times, so you get this chance to make your project that much better by getting advice from the rest of us. So Quest Garden is an online application that allows you to create web quests that already have functioning navigation, a real specific look and feel. There is a 30-day trial. It otherwise costs $10 per year. So if you want to use it past 30 days, then you'll have to pay. It's only $10. It's actually kind of a worthwhile investment. It's a nice tool. But if your trial runs out and you've chosen not to pay, your web quest will not disappear. It's there forever. Your account actually will remain pretty much indefinitely, and you can activate it by paying at any point in time later on. You just won't be able to create new web quests. You'll only be able to look at the one you've made. You won't even be able to edit the one that you've made. It's a real reliable service. It's pretty useful. I really like it. I find that a lot of other students like it too because of how focused it is on making web quests. It's its job. That's what it does. It does it pretty well. If you prefer, though, there are other tools. There's Zoonal.com, which is another one that's specific to making web quests. It's a little simpler. It has a few less features, but it's free with no restrictions as well. It's just a lot simpler, and some people have a hard time dealing with something that's that simplistic. Another option then is Weebly, if you want something that's a little fancier. Weebly is a full-blown website creation tool. It allows you to create any type of website, including web quests. It doesn't have any specifics about that. You have to set up your own navigation, your own themes, and all that good stuff. It doesn't really give you advice about making web quests like other sites will. You just have to set up everything yourself and make your own choices. But because of that, the trade-off is that you get a lot access to many more modern cool things, cool features. It's not a terribly difficult site to use. Some people don't want to deal with extra complexity, but it's a pretty awesome tool, and it does a lot. It actually is a pretty powerful website tool. So if you're looking for a website tool for other projects, I highly recommend Weebly. There's also Google Sites, which is similar to Weebly in that it's very modern. You can integrate a lot of things. Of course, it's Google, so you already have an account, and you can add whatever you like to it from your Google Drive, and it does that pretty well. So those are your choices. Remember that your web quest is supposed to be a real quest. It's an interactive journey. It's a problem to solve. So students are going to be creating a project. They're going to be doing research. So providing lots of resources will be absolutely necessary to help students through the project. And it'll also need to be based on Indiana academic standards. So you'll make sure to cite your standards, connect your standards to this web quest as you go. This is a big project. That's why we have so much time devoted to it. Do not wait until the last minute to do this. You will be very, very unhappy. It is worth a large number of points. It's worth about a third of the rest of the points in the class. So this one goes in your portfolio. It's a big deal. Please do not skimp on this one. I know it's tough when you've got lots of other projects going on at the end of the semester, but if you start early and take baby steps through it, it is really not that bad at all. You just have to be kind of diligent with yourself and keep yourself on task. So the parts of a web quest. All web quests follow this basic format, which is why we use this format. It's really straightforward and easy to follow, even if you've never made a lesson plan before in your life. So it starts with the introduction. It introduces learners to what they're going to be learning, usually in a fun and story-like kind of way. It talks directly to students. Don't write for teachers until you get to the teacher page. Consider that your web quest might be used by students with only minimal help or guidance from a teacher. That teacher might be the guide on the side, and so you need to be real clear on everything that the students need to do. You need to be engaging, fun, and get them hooked on the story. Then the task will briefly provide objectives and the overall goals of your web quest. It's usually a fairly short piece. It's just a summary, but you're now beginning to get students involved in what they're actually doing. The process is pretty much where all the magic happens. It describes in very specific detail each step of the web quest and what students must do. So this is kind of the heart of the web quest. It's likely where you'll spend most of your time is building this part. The web resources are here. All the steps are here. Everything that the student needs to do to complete their project. Then the evaluation is describing how learners are going to be evaluated, usually in the form of a rubric. In some cases it might not be, but it's more typical that it is a rubric, and there are going to be resources available to help you create a good rubric and make sure that you addressed all of your objectives that you set forward for your web quest, including aspects of the lesson like group work, creativity, other kinds of soft skills. You'll want to probably include those as well in your rubric. The conclusion wraps everything up then, so it takes us to a satisfying ending point. Often it's sort of a call for action, a call for extra credit, a way to extend learning, something like that, just to say, congratulations, we're done, and here's how we're going to move on. Then you've got the teacher section. And so this will include your standards, insights about using this web quest in a real classroom. These are public, so other teachers might come across what you're doing and they would like to use your web quest. So you're going to get give them specific information about how to use your web quest, important things that we should know, obviously the standards, but also things like how they can adapt this lesson if they don't have all, say, the materials that you're asking for. What can they do to change things? So be sure to be as complete as you can, especially with your Indiana standards. Now, the number one thing that students miss sometimes with this project, they start out with a great idea, but believe it or not, they forget to involve the web. Web quests involve the web. It's not just a repository for static text. It's not a worksheet. In any good web quest, the primary way that students get their information to construct projects or come to their solution is by visiting websites that you give them. This way, students are not just searching all over and spending time on Google and potentially not finding anything useful because their search skills might not be up to snuff. So you're going to do some of that work for them and keep them off of Google. You can, especially if you're working with high school students, you can suggest that as an addition to sort of thing, but you're going to want to give them the resources as much as you can up front, so that they will find good stuff. They'll see examples of what good stuff looks like. Also, most web quests center around a problem that needs to be solved. Long-term project. These are not day-long activities. These are weeks, months, sometimes whole semesters or whole years worth of stuff. So these are big deals. This is something where they work on a problem to solve. They come up with their solution. They do their research. They then present it to the class in some fashion. Whether that's a presentation or coming up with a website or publishing a little book, whatever it is. So think about those kinds of potentials as well. Quest Garden, I'll say, is a real easy program to use, and a lot of people wind up liking it because even though it's not that fancy, it gives you advice about what to put on each of the pages. And when we get into it, I'll show you what it looks like. And it's actually designed by the guy that created WebQuests. His name is Bernie Dodge. He's kind of famous in education, and if he made this tool, it's probably pretty good, right? So that's something to think about. Regardless of what website tool you use, don't worry so much about what pages look like. Don't mess around too much with things like all the graphics and getting them just so. They're never going to look exactly the way you want them to. If you've ever made a website before, you know this already. If you haven't, if this is new to you, don't be frustrated by aesthetics. Do that at the end if you must. If you must play around with colors and graphics and things like that, get the stuff down, get the text down, because that's the most important part. You can even write up things in Google or Word or whatever first, and then copy and paste them into the website tool when you're ready. That would be a great use of your resources and your time. As long as you just remember that none of these tools automatically create hyperlinks. That's an important point. All of them have some sort of an insert hyperlink tool that you'll need to use in order to make your links work. Nothing auto magics. Google, Weebly, all of them, they don't do that. So just keep that in mind. You'll have to make sure your links are clickable before you go figuring out that it's all said and done and it's good to go. You really don't want your students trying to copy and paste links to go places. It's no fun. You'll also be able to add images from either your own computer, or you can search the web and add them there. All of the programs allow those kinds of things as well. Finally, don't forget to fill in all the parts of your web quest. Quest Garden has some extra teacher pages. You could use that as a model because it's got a section for teacher advice about how the teacher goes through the process, resources that might be additional for teachers to use, and then sections for the standards, explaining who your learners are, introducing everything. So on other sites, obviously, you don't have as many options. You just have teacher page. You can have as many teacher pages as you need. You have a separate one for standards and then another one for teacher stuff. Also, make sure you give credit on your page, so you'll have a credits section somewhere, whether that's in the teacher page or like in Quest Guardian, it provides you a credits page of its own. So make sure anything where you've gotten your pictures, make sure those are cited and in there. At least give us the links to their original sources. If you used anybody's lesson plan idea and turned it into a WebQuest, you should give them credit and give them put that into your credits page. So don't forget that part. We do not want plagiarism. Plagiarism is very bad, of course, you know that. So let's try to avoid doing that. If you've been inspired by somebody else's work, give them credit. You know, it doesn't hurt to do that. Don't ever copy and paste somebody else's WebQuest because they'll know about it. You're publishing it in public forum. Everyone will know, including me. So don't do that. Hopefully I don't have to say that many times. So lots of information is out there. In the next section, you'll see us in Blackboard working in some of the tools. I'll give you some more tips, but there's a lot of reading you can do on your own as well. Spend time with this. Do not wait till the last minute. You will be very, very unhappy camper if you do that. So I don't want that for you. I want you to have a great project, something that you're going to be happy to put in your portfolio. So we have 5 weeks devoted to this. It's a long time. Spend as much time as you can refining this and getting it to a place where you're happy with it. Here we are in Module 5, our very last module. You can see that we have a large number of weeks devoted to this one, so you've got lots and lots of time. And you can find out about the peer reviews. They both kind of have the same directions, so you see the directions and then the links to 2 separate peer reviews. And the reason why there's 2 separate phases with 2 separate links is it's easier for us to keep track of everything. If we have one board and we're all posting multiple times, it can get a little confusing. So this way we'll have them separated and be able to access them. So you'll post your link, you'll get feedback. It'll be a real helpful experience for you. So then there's the WebQuest assignment, which you'll want to kind of look at in tandem with the directions for the peer review. It's a long document. I'm not going to lie, there's a lot here. It may even feel a little overwhelming, but please don't let it feel that way. Take it in steps. Every good WebQuest kind of does phases, and I've kind of tried to write this as if it were a WebQuest. You're doing kind of a WebQuest within a WebQuest. So phase 1 is the basics. Choose your objectives. Figure out what grade level you're at. What are some of the things that you want to do? Then from there, you can start figuring out, okay, how is this going to look? Where am I going to put it? What tool am I going to use? And then it gives you information about what goes in each of those steps, the introduction, task, process, evaluation, conclusion, and teacher section. So it lays everything out exactly what you need to know. There are absolutely no mysteries here. It tells you everything you need to know. There is even extra credit, so if you want to take advantage of some pretty decent extra credit, up to 10 extra credit points, you can add some cool things, widgets. You can add screencasts if you want to do a little lecture within your WebQuest. You certainly could try that with Screencastify or Screencast-O-Matic. You could try an ed puzzle, give students some videos to watch, and give them questions that will pop up during the video that they'll have to answer in order to continue with the video. You could create a Powtoon. You could integrate in Google Docs, create different parts of the activity that students might have to, add to a template or something like that. Lots of stuff. So, I mean, these are just a couple of options here. There are lots of other things that you could integrate. If you have questions about the extra credit, about what to add or what you can add, let me know. So there are extra credit options here as well. Then once you post that draft, there'll be your link, your published website, that then everybody will then be able to see and give you feedback on, so that then you can come back and start finishing it up. formatting it, refining it, get it the way you want it to look, where you're happy with it. And then when you're done, you're going to turn it in to me. And that will be with a link. Obviously, that's kind of all you're doing here is making a website, so you can just send that link to me in Blackboard when you are ready. Now, the evaluation section is the part that's actually longest. I mean, the directions themselves seemed a little overwhelming, but the evaluation section in here is a little long just because we have multiple programs in this class, and so you're being evaluated on a couple of different rubrics. If you are in the Hammond programs, there is the necessity to post this in a task stream. So this will be your second post in task stream for this class. So initially in Blackboard, this is the rubric everybody uses with your, basic stuff. How is that introduction? How does that task play out? What does the process look like? All this stuff is here for you. And then if you're in the Hammond programs, then there is the portfolio rubric available, and that's based on your the InTask Core teaching standards. So you can review that if you want. You're shooting for the middle, you're shooting for that meets the standard target. So if you happen to get above that and get into that 3 range, awesome. It's not necessary, and it's maybe not even likely in some cases that you'll get there, and it's totally okay. This kind of rubric is a different sort of evaluation process. So this may or may not reflect the score that you got in Blackboard. They may be a little different. So Hammond students, if you have questions about those things, please do let me know. I also have the ISTE standards for teachers here, and as our programs continue to unify and those kinds of things, you're going to see these integrated more clearly. For now, you're not necessarily bound to them. Your portfolio isn't based on them, on these standards. So this is more informational, this part, than anything else. We'd love to see you meeting some of these standards, though. So, if you're finding that this is a valuable resource for you to see where you're at, I would definitely check it out, but that's not the it's not something you're going to be formally evaluated on right now. Also, same thing with early childhood. In your program, you are evaluated in some different ways on the NACCE standards, but this also gives you an indicator where you should be at within the early childhood program. So if you're in that program, that's your information. And then once you're all said and done, you can take a deep breath, you can celebrate, you can relax, you can double check that you sent me a URL that works before the end of the semester. If it doesn't, I'll be chasing you down, and if I don't get back to you don't get back to me soon, it might be a 0, and you really don't want that. So, like I said, it looks like a lot of stuff, but once you start breaking it down, it's not that bad. Take it in stages and don't let all these rubrics freak you out. They're here for your benefit, not to, scare you. So, with that said, I want to show you that there are a bunch of example web quests here. Quite a number of example web quests from previous semesters. I've been gathering up different web quests from students over many years. And while some of the older ones may not be exactly what I'm asking for now, some of the assignment description has obviously changed a little bit over the years, but the newest ones are on top. So that's something, if you're looking for what the newest and latest and greatest are, the newest ones are on top from the last few semesters. And you can see that I've got a mix. Pretty much anything that doesn't say it's from Weebly or Zoonal or Google is done in QuestGarden. So for example, I will show you a couple of interesting ones here that might give you some just thoughts, ideas, and just to see what this thing looks like when it's all said and done. So I'm going to look at Katie's here. Katie did a really nice web quest about social studies, but sort of integrating some literacy too, and they're exploring the life of Martin Luther King. Which is a great topic. So, she's kind of trying to bring that to life, help students understand who he really was and his messages. Because actually, this came up with a teacher friend of mine recently. Teaches English in the middle school, and she has a large population of African American students, and do you know not one of them actually knew who Martin Luther King was? They kind of knew that he was important. Some of them thought he freed the slaves. Some of them thought he was still alive. It was very, very interesting. So, I was just thinking about that, and I believe that somewhere in this time frame was when I had a talk with Katie and mentioned that story, and so this was one of the things that she came up with was, helping educate her young ones about him to understand how important his messages were and how important he was at this early age. So this is meant for very young children, first grade, I believe. So here's her introduction. She's asking us questions. She's getting us interested. Then she gets her into her task where she's summarizing what's going on. So she's, talks about this is who Martin Luther King was. We'll be watching the speech. Then we're going to write about him and, why we celebrate his birthday as a holiday. And then they're actually the cool part about this one is that they actually write a letter to Martin Luther King about what their dream world looks like. So writing a research essay is, it's kind of boring. It's been done. But to take this now to a new level and think about what the students' internal idea of what their dream world looks like. What does world peace mean to this particular first grader, and is it different from the first grader across the room? So they're going to learn about letter writing because that is one of the standards in this grade, but they're going to apply it in this way of exploring various aspects of social studies and write to this figure. So pretty cool thing, great ideas. She first leads them through, okay, let's watch the speech. So here's the link, let's watch the speech. Now let's do some research. Here are a bunch of links for you to do research to learn more about him. And of course, this is a topic where there's a ton of great information, so she had no trouble doing research for this. And then she collected everything up, and she has them actually using a Word doc. So she gives them a little graphic organizer to start with, and then they can add to it. This could have also been a Google Doc or something like that. She chose Word, totally fine too. Then she's got information. Okay, now let's start writing. Here's some, some ways that we're going to do peer review. So she's got them partnering up to do a little peer review and doing the letter process. Again, a prompt in Word for them to download, to use to start them off, and then they're going to submit their final draft, and that's their finished product after they've learned everything that they were going to learn in this web quest. So it wraps up. This is something that could potentially take weeks. It could take 1 week. It's definitely not a one-day thing, though. This is a multiple-day thing, for sure. The evaluation rubric was really straightforward. She's got her research, her letter, the content format, the graphic organizer gets turned in, grammar and spelling. So those are the things that she concentrated on. Since this wasn't really a group project, it was more individual, this made more sense to not include some like group skills and things like that. Then it finally wraps up. Now you're an expert, yay, kind of a nice wrap up. Nice graphics at the end. Here's her credits. Of course, she was very nice to me, but she also included all of her other Google images and all the things that she found. So that's a great way to give credit where credit's due. And then when we go to her teacher page, you can see how the layout changes because Quest Garden sets this up for you automatically. Then you can talk about, okay, what is this web quest about for teachers? Who are my learners? They're first graders in this case. Here are my standards. She copied and pasted them. The process, any information about it. She estimates the lesson would take up to 3 or 4 weeks, which seems quite doable. She talks about their reading levels, anything that you can think of to help teachers use this or adapt it for their own classrooms. That's the kind of stuff you put into these areas. And then if you want to provide extra links for a teacher or anything additional, the resources is a great place to put it. So that was Katie's awesome web quest, and there's a lot more awesome web quests where that one came from, but you can see that there's just a ton here. For a different example, I will show you a Zoonal very quickly and a Weebly, just so you can see the difference. So Eric, some of you might know Eric, he's in our secondary program. He found out I like cats, so he put cats in a lot of things for me. And so he did a very nice one in Zoonal, which, like I told you, is simpler. And you can see it doesn't have as many options for the sidebar. It's pretty much this is what it is, but it still takes you all through the different stages. And so he has a pretty detailed, very interesting English lesson here. And he takes you through all kinds of different ideas about finding, doing research, exploring different topics, current events, things like that, in all kinds of different ways. So and he has it day by day, which is certainly one way to break it up. So he's kind of done a series of interesting things here. If you're in the secondary program, I highly recommend you take a look at this one because he's got a lot of awesome ideas here. But this is sort of what Zoonal looks like. And so you can see that the rubric table, just like QuestGuard, it gives you a table you can fill in. This one kind of does the same thing. You wrap it up. You only get one teacher page. You don't get multiple teacher pages. So you'll have to kind of stick everything on here, including your credits and your standards and everything. So that's what Zoonal looks like. And then, oops, let's show you a Weebly, just to round things out. There's also a Google site. There's a Google site, and there's a couple of great Google sites. So you can kind of see that Marie here has used Google Sites. This is really a neat science web quest, by the way. And you can organize it in different ways. You can call stuff different things. You can have as many pages as you want, because it's meant for any kind of website, not just web quests. So it gives you a little bit more freedom, but of course you don't have as many directions as far as what to put on each page. You just have a blank canvas to do whatever you want. Here's a history elementary web quest. Leslie had done a 50 States adventure. Very common theme in WebQuest, by the way, is to do trips. So you have the different introduction, task, conclusion, etc. here on the top, and she actually put her process and evaluation on the same page. That's okay. The only thing I ask is, that you're using the format. The standard format. You don't want to get too crazy with us not being able to find the parts of your web quest that make it a web quest. If you just kind of have one page and just have a bunch of stuff on it, call it a lesson, that's not really a web quest. So we want to stick to the format, which means that yes, I am dictating a little bit what your menu bars say. So if you're using Weebly or Google Sites, you are a little bit stuck to what I'd like to see you put in, but there's a little bit of freedom there. So like if you want to have process and evaluation on the same page, that's fine. I can still find them easily, right? So just consider that as you're building this too. But you can see this is Weebly, which looks very nice. It's very attractive. Even I can show you a different one that has a different theme to it. It's a little bit more exciting. Or at least she uses more graphics and some video. So Jennifer had done actually a very cool one that I recommend looking at. It's a Native American medicine web quest. So she wanted to do something about Native Americans, and then she got stuck. And so we were talking about it, and she also at some point she'd mentioned the standards in 3rd grade about science and the parts of a plant. And so I thought, well, we started talking and I said, well, why don't you have something about how Native Americans used plants for things like medicine? And this is what she came up with from that idea. So kind of a cool one. She does use more graphics and things. She's also got embedded video. You can see how video is embedded here. And that's a great thing to get people excited, your students excited about what they're looking at. Then she leads you through all of her different information, more videos and stuff, and a ton of links. All kinds of great links of all kinds of different information, and then explaining in narrative how to do each step. The evaluation, she used iRubric, and she wound up taking a screenshot of this and adding it as a image. Sometimes it's easier to do that than to try embedding them, because sometimes Weebly is funny about things like that. So this one worked fine. She could have also provided a link, just a straight up text link, but she wanted it to be on here, so that's why she provided it as a picture. And then we rounded out with our conclusion, credits, teacher section. So there's, like I said, you've seen them, there's a ton of resources, a ton of examples available. So don't feel like you have nothing to go on. There's a ton of stuff, and there's nothing in here that isn't a good example. There's also some really awesome ideas that might spark your own creativity when you look at what other people have thought of for this project. So I really recommend looking through some of the examples to get your head into this game. Now, as far as what QuestGuard, I'm just going to focus on QuestGuard and Weebly very quickly to show you what they look like. So I am logged in now to my QuestGuard account, and you can, once you create something, just say create a web quest, and it gives you a blank canvas. But you're taken to this dashboard, and it's literally going down the list. Start at the top and move your way down. And by the time you're done, you're ready to publish it. The only thing I would suggest is skipping overall design, because sometimes that creates issues for you. And it doesn't really always match up with many of the types of ideas we come up with for WebQuest. So I'd actually skip that part and just go straight to your title. What is this thing? What is it about? It leads you through everything. You mark down all the different parts, go straight to standards, so that you can, note what your standards are for the project right away. And notice this tab. You'll always get this tab at the top when you're editing text. It's the advice tab. And again, Bernie Dodge made this. Bernie Dodge invented WebQuests, so he has really good advice about what should go in each of these boxes. So obviously the standards one isn't that terribly interesting, but they get more interesting as time goes on. And he reminds you all the time. It's the only downside to this one is that it doesn't auto save. You have to hit the save button if you want it to save your work. It will not warn you, hey, you're going to an unsaved thing. Do you want to save it? It won't warn you. It'll just let you do it, which means you can lose work that way. So you have to be kind of diligent with this one and not forget to hit that button when you're ready to move on. So each one, again, explaining what's here, what should go, what is this box for. The only things you can really skip, or that you don't have to, but these don't really show up in your web quest, is this checkpoint area. Each of these sections is a checkpoint. They're for you, for self-reflection. Nobody else will really see them but you. So it's a great place to just try and answer some of these questions and get your reflection down, but it is not required. So as you can see, it just sort of leads you through this whole process, gives you advice, gives you examples. At the end, when you're all said and done, you'll publish it. You can actually publish it at any point in time. This is true for all of them. The only trick is that it will only have published your most recent, whatever you recently changed. So if you go back, you've published it, then you go back and change something, you have to publish it again. So you can see my last web quest was last published on this date, and then it gets modified periodically, right? So this version is not the latest version because I made changes that were since that date, which means that I would need to publish again so that everybody else could see my changes. Your link will never change. You'll set your link at the beginning and it'll always be your link. But you have to publish any of your newest changes. So you can publish it to your blue in the face. It doesn't matter how many times you do it. If you make one little change, go ahead and publish it. Even if you don't remember if you made a change, but you're not quite sure, just hit the button. And it'll make life a lot easier for all of us. Weebly works the same way. So Weebly, I've already logged in. It's a pretty cool website. They got lots of features. But I'm just going to edit this one so you can see. This is a test site. So you can see that it has a slightly different structure because it has no structure. Right, initially you don't get any of this stuff. You just get a big blank. You get to select your theme and off you go. The themes, by the way, sometimes are really cool, but not very helpful. So sometimes you spend time kind of modifying themes that already exist to suit your own needs. But that's okay. You can have some fun with it. There are some really kind of nifty ones as far as design goes. Then you've got your pages area. By default, they'll give you a few pages, and then you'll need to then modify this to get your own pages that you want in there. So if I am working on this and I have a page that exists and I need to change the name, I just click on it to change the name. Or if I want another one, I can copy it or I can get rid of it. Like in this case, maybe this standards page isn't a page I need anymore because it says standards 2. I can get rid of it, and now it cleans up my menu a little bit. And there's this other standards that was supposed to be somewhere else. So now I can just drag him. You can just drag him and move him around. So if you'd rather put your standards up there, you totally can do that, and I'll show you what that's going to look like. But you can't edit anything here, and you won't see much to speak of here. You have to edit in Build. So the Build tab is where all the magic happens, and this is the place where you can add text, images, and so forth simply by dragging them and dropping them into place. So I grabbed a tool, dropped it in, and now I get my options. And it actually does have some different features for searching, bring up from your computer, and so forth. It also will do YouTube videos, so it'll embed them really easily into the web page. It'll give you sort of a simple one, and then you can click on it to edit it, give it an actual YouTube URL. And then if you want text, you just add all the text you want. You can add titles, different text, arrange them, move them around. And if you want this one to be somewhere else, just grab it by its little handle there and put it where it needs to be. And you can kind of see how things spread out and change positions as you move stuff around. As you can see, it's pretty easy to get along with. It's a nice tool. And when you're ready to publish, you just hit publish. And I've already published this one, but initially it would ask me to name it. Don't pay for domain names hosting. It'll want to give you that option because, of course, they'd love to charge you for something. It'll continuously remind you that things are available. But you just give it the standard, give it a name .weebly.com, which is the free option. So, whatever your name is, you might have to mess around with the name. It'll tell you whether it's taken or not. You might have to get creative with your naming, but it'll be that your link will always look like this, your name.weebly.com. So you'll set that when you first publish it, and then every time you make a change, hit publish again so it goes up. So that was a very, very short introduction to these different tools and everything that we've got going on for our web quest. Of course, we'll spend a lot more time with this throughout the rest of the 5 weeks, but hopefully this was a good intro and maybe answered some of your questions. And if you have more questions, let me know. I want this to be a fun adventure, creative journey for you, and I want you to be successful because this is your final project, and it's kind of a big deal. We want it to be good. So let's do our best and have fun with it, and be sure to ask questions the minute you have them. Don't wait till the last minute.